Hey, you little seamstresses. So here's what we're doing today. We're going to thread our needles two different ways. We're going to do starting knots two different ways. And we're going to do finishing knots two different ways. Why are we doing everything two different ways? Because we're different people, and sometimes something works for one person that doesn't work for another. And so I want you to pick the way that works for you, and that's how I want you to do things. Let's start with the threading. The first way that I'm going to show you to thread a needle is by using your needle threader. And so here are my needles. They've been in their secure little spot in their felt scrap, and I'm going to pull one of them out. And so now I'm going to pick up my needle threader, and I'm going to use the hook. There's three different hooks that will go through the eye of the needle best. And so that's the large hook for this, because it's a large needle with a large eye. And so I'm going to take a piece of thread and my needle threader and my needle, and you don't have to hold all this stuff in your hand all at one time. You do it however it works for you. But I'm going to take my needle and push my needle threader through the eye. And I'm just going to let my needle just kind of hang there. And now I'm going to take my thread and I'm just going to lay it across my hook so that I have a short end and I have a long end. And so now I'm going to hold the shaft of my needle, that's this long part of the needle, and I'm going to pull my hook back through the eye of the needle, and I'm going to pull until the short end of the thread comes through. And then I can just take my needle threader off that short end, and I'm going to pull my needle to make my thread match and be even on both sides. So I'm bringing the two ends of my thread together. I'm going to hold on to that and then pull my needle. And so now it's even and it's ready for me to tie a knot. But I'm not going to tie a knot just yet. I'm going to secure my needle. Remember, we should always know where our needles are. So I'm going to push it through, bring it back to the top, push it through on the bottom, bring it back to the top, and it's nice and secure, and it won't fall out and stick someone. So now I'm going to take my second needle. I'm going to put this out of the way, and we're going to thread our second way. So this way is the way that many seamstresses will do it. They would either lick their fingers and wet the ends of the thread so that they work to smooth out and they work together. Threads work together. Or they'll put it in their mouths and get it nice and wet and smooth the ends of the thread. And now I'm ready to thread. I'm just going to push my thread through the eye of my needle. And I evened it out, bringing the tails of my thread together. And now it too is ready for a knot. If you remember that you measure your thread so that it works for you, you took your thread in one hand and you put that hand out, stretch that arm all the way out, and then you turn your head the opposite direction and touch your nose with your thread. That way you know it's right for you. Okay, so now let's do a starting knot. This time I'm going to just lay it down in front of me. There's my needle. Just lay it down in front of me. I'm going to take the ends of the thread and loop it around so that I make a loop. You see the loop? Now, this thread is on top of this second thread. So I need to bring the ends of it under the loop and pull it through the loop. And now I can just pull both ends. I'm doing more pulling of this one, the longer one, because I'm trying to make the knot go as far to this end as it will go. And I pull, pull, and pull tight. And there is my knot. Can you see it? It's right there. Okay. So I've got a little bit of a tail out here, so I want to cut some of that off, but I don't want to cut right at the knot, because if I do, my knot will come out. And so that one's all ready to sew. I'm going to secure it again in my felt scrap until I'm ready to use it. Oh, I think I must have picked up a tapestry needle instead of embroidery needle, because it's not wanting to go in this felt. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to pull out that second needle again. And I'm going to tie a knot a second way. So this time I'm going to wrap it around my finger. And I can do either put it in my mouth. Again, it helps to have the ends working together. So I can either put it in my mouth and get it wet, or I can wet it with my fingers by licking my fingers and then just rubbing and bringing those together the best I can. And I'm going to roll it around my finger. Can you see that I've rolled it all the way around? I rolled it around, and I'm using my thumb to hold the one with the tail. My thumb is on it. And I'm going to roll my thumb forward while I bring this finger backwards and pull all at the same time. Rolling and pulling. And if we're lucky, we'll have a knot at the end. And it's almost at the very end, so I don't need to trim anything off. Can you see it? Okay. Now let's secure that needle back in our scrap. I went down and up and down and up. Okay, let's put that out of the way. So the third thing that we were going to do today is do finishing knots. The starting knots are the knots that you put in when you start sewing. The finishing knots are the knots that you put in when you're either finished with the project or at a point where you need to tie a knot. That might be you ran out of thread and you got to start again. Or it might be that you have to get your clothes on and get dressed to go out to dinner or maybe have pizza. But whatever the reason that you have to stop is called a finishing knot. So we're going to put a finishing knot in this. I've been practicing my back stitch. Can you see that it is, the stitches are pretty much nice and even, but our work never has to be perfect. So it's not perfect, but it will look perfect once you finish the whole thing. So I practiced my back stitch, and I'm using actually construction paper because it's a lot bigger and you can see it a little bit better. And I've got a bottom layer and a top layer. And I'm holding them together. You can do it either with clips, and you have clips in your kit. Or you can just use a straight pin in the middle. That's what I'm going to use today. I just poked the pin through and pushed it back to the front side. And it will hold these together nice and sturdy. Okay, so with my back stitch, I have a pretty side and a side that's not as pretty. So we don't want other people looking at that, so we don't really care a lot about that back side. So that's where we're going to put our finishing knot. So if you got a side that is the wrong side or the bad side, you can leave your knot on the outside. And the way you do that is that you push your needle under a stitch, the last stitch that you took, and you pull it. Be sure you have a loop So you have to stop early enough that you can get yourself a loop. And you just put the needle through the loop and pull. Now don't pull so tight that you pull all the way through your fabric. And then you do it again. You pick up the knot or pick up the stitch. There's your loop again. Put your needle through the loop and pull. So that's 2 times we've done it. You can do it 3, that's okay. If you do it 3 times, that means that is an even better knot. So I pushed right into my knot that time. And now I'm going to pick that up and pull. And there is my loop. I'm going to put my needle through my loop and pull. And I now have a knot. Okay, so now I'm just going to clip that. I'm not going to clip right next to the knot. Give yourself a little space out there and clip your knot. And you don't care that that's there because that's your ugly side. This is the pretty side that you might have your fancy design on. And so that one's all done. I'm going to secure my needle because you always should know where your needle and your scissors and your pins are. I try to keep them in front of me or at least beside me. So I push that in front. And now let's try a second finishing knot. This time you care about where that knot is because your stitches are the same on both sides. So you got 2 pretty sides. Just get that out a little bit. So you got 2 pretty sides. So you don't want your knot showing on the outside. So what do you do about that? Well, let's see. I've got my 2 layers to my sandwich here. I'm going to open my layer. And my next stitch, I'm going to take just through the bottom layer. Can you see that? I just want to come through the bottom layer. There I am. All right, something caught in my throat. Okay, so I'm through the bottom layer. And I'm going to go back to the last stitch that I took on the inside. Can you see that stitch? There's a stitch right there. I'm going to go right under that stitch. I'm going to pull my needle. It's trying to disappear with me on this. Let me try it again. Okay, so I'm going to go under that stitch and I'm going to pull it. And there's my loop. Can you see my loop? And pull. Pull in tight, but not hard enough to pull through your fabric. And I'm going to do it again. I'm picking up the same stitch. And I'm going to go through my loop. There's my loop. And I'm going to pull again. See, so far we're not seeing the knot on the outside. That's because we're putting it on the inside. And I'm going to pick that stitch up one more time, or even go through the knot that you already have there would be even better. So pick it up again. So this is my 3rd time. There's my loop. I'm going to go through my loop and pull. Now I'm ready to cut. Close to my knot, but not right on it. And I can just push that little piece that's sticking out. I can push it back inside. And there we go. The knot's on the inside. So, little seamstresses, we studied 3 different things today. I better secure my needle before I'm done. So, here we go. All right, keeping my needle in front of me. My scissors are here to the right. You can't see them, they're off the screen, but they're in front of me also. And we're done for the day. That was threading 2 ways, starting knots 2 different ways, and finishing knots 2 different ways. That's the end. See you next time.